Hello, hello, gentlemen! So welcome to this new episode of 𝑺𝑻𝑹𝑨𝑵𝑵𝑬𝑩𝑶𝑳 Speaker's Corner with almighty, incredible Mr. David Petersen. Thank you very much for being here, Mr. David Petersen. It's very, very welcome into this box on Twitch just to speak with us. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Just a little bit of translation for our Italian audience. Buonasera a tutti, benvenuti a questa nuova puntata dello 𝑺𝑻𝑹𝑨𝑵𝑵𝑬𝑩𝑶𝑳 Speaker's Corner. Questa sera il grande autore, tra le tante altre cose, dei magnificenti disegni di Mouse Guard, Mr. David Petersen. I think that you just catch Mr. David Petersen from my Italian pronunciation. That is very good. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's a long time that we have to set up this this live streaming, but as the very good stories at the end, we did it.
We did.
We're
did. Here.
We are discussing just that we have a common. I have a friend that he is living very close to him, so I will call after this streaming and say, "I'm making an interview with your neighbor." Anyway, just straight to some question, because now that we have you here, we would like to know as much as possible of you and your art. Dear David, please tell us, who is David Petersen?
Who am I? I'm a writer, illustrator, probably best known for my comic series Mouse Guard. I've also done covers for Ninja Turtles, 𝑺𝑻𝑹𝑨𝑵𝑵𝑬𝑩𝑶𝑳, Star Wars, Rocket Raccoon. I illustrated an edition of Wind in the Willows. Yeah, I'm an illustrator, and I like telling stories with images, with drawings.
I like to tell these stories with images. This is very powerful sentence from you, and I appreciate it very, very much. It's a very great one. And may I add something? Because in Italy, I would like to give you what is the perception of Mr. Petersen. I had a common friend that makes streaming, and said when I just put out the news that you will be over here, said to me, "Oh my God, David Petersen, really? I will comment for sure," because the impact of your heart, especially for Mouse Guard, that is one of the most appreciated art, and from my side, the tabletop RPGs most appreciated. It's something that is our in our common imaginary, no? So in Italy, the perception of Mr. Petersen is this one, is associated very deeply with Mouse Guard. But it's not only Mouse Guard, as you said. Your art is expanding with Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles and much more. And as much as I discover your art, I was so fascinated of your way to draw, way to put the color, way to put everything. It's something very unique. This is my perception, and not only mine, because I have a discussion with many other people, and is that the perception of the people as it? And I have to say very honestly that the fascination of the art of your way to concept the mice, the single mouse with his description, with his quality and the expression that appears so rude, but at the end is not. It's courage. It's power to be fight something that is so bigger than them. And so this perception is very great here in Italy, and that's why your art is so appreciated from very wide range of public, from kids to old ones, and from male to women. So there's no public that is maybe it's only dedicated to you. It's very wide, and this is a very uncommon, because here in Italy, you know, for probably for the soccer we support just one to the other one, and you are absolutely wide, and this is very great.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we go straight to another question. Your comics creation process. What inspires you? How does your creativity process work? We are very curious about that.
It has changed over the years.
Yeah.
But it's basically working from some kind of a rough idea or outline from the very beginning of what I want the story to be and what I want the purpose of the story to be. I try not to overly write. I try not to put too much down all at once. Like I will not, if I'm doing a 6-issue series, I don't write all 6 issues. I do an outline for the whole series of like, here's in broad strokes what I want the whole book to be about. And then I'll just focus on what of that needs to happen in issue 1. Then I do an outline for issue 1 that's a little more granular. Start writing some dialogue, start writing some things like that. But I'm not working on issue 2 until I'm done with issue 1. And then I write and draw, or I mean, I draw in ink and color. A lot of the pencil drawing is done on copy paper. Different characters are drawn separately and then put into Photoshop. All my pencils are arranged until I can resize them and get everything where I want it in the panel, make sure that there's room for all the type, all the words. And then I print that out and I will ink it on a light pad, which means that my finished pages don't have pencil on them. So no need to erase in the end. And then I scan the traditional inks back into Photoshop and I color them and do the final lettering.
This is very interesting because you just told about colors. In my opinion, I born as a fan of the golden era of the comics, no? So for me, Jim Starlin, Buscema, and things like this. You know, the colony of Italian people at the court of Marvel is so huge, okay? And the color is something that fascinated very much to me. And your art, especially the Mouse Guard one, it's something that gives me emotion, because your track, the pencil tracking to the mouse, it's very beautiful. Even into the cover of the Tabletop RPGs manual, that is the snake, no, the mouse that is riding a snake. The snake, as in all its skin, has color that are very, very impressive. There's something brilliant, no, like emerald, okay, and something that catch your eyes very, very much, and is a very uncommon way of using color. There are many illustrators, your people that knows probably very well, that are drawing into the Tabletop RPGs manual, but they have not the same use of color as you had. It's something that keeps you. Sometimes, just because you come from the art, from the comics, your images catches more. That's something to read into the manual, no? You just open the manual and go pages by pages. look in the drawings because said, "Oh, this is very cool. This is very cool. This is I like the color. I like the use of green or yellow or orange. This is it's something that we discuss in the community as I don't know, daily cheating, no? And
I
yeah, yeah, please.
I in college I did some watercolor work and took a watercolor class, and so I had some classic training in watercolor. But when it came time to color the first issue of Mouse Guard, I had actually already sold the original artwork because I first self published the very first issue in black and white,
Yeah.
and to help finance what would be a second issue, I sold all the original artwork or most of the original artwork for issue one. And then I signed a publishing contract with my American publisher, Archaea,
Mm.
and they said we want to do it in color. Well, I couldn't go back and watercolor any of the pages; they were gone. So I had to do digital. But I think that watercolor background kind of informs my digital work, even though it is digital. I don't I don't try to fool anybody that I'm doing watercolor. I think it still looks digital. I've had some people convinced that I'm actually doing traditional media for color, and but I'm not trying to fool anybody. I don't think it looks like watercolor, but I think the information that I have from watercolor training tells me about how much saturation the color should have, the light, the dark, how much contrast, um, and that it also kind of tells me where to stop, not to overdo it, not to over render, not to do big dramatic lighting. That it can be subtle.
I think that this is your expression, and I say you what is my perception. My perception as a user, as a fan, as a person that has your manual into my house and just appreciate to look at, is this things that you said, not go over. Uh, Even Mouse Guard at the end, it's something that is the fight for life for these mice, but the tractor is so kind, so gentle. So it describes the nature of these mice that are more maybe close to a fable, no, that
Mm-hmm.
to a war that they have to fight every day just to survive. And this contrast, I think it's something very catchy, no? Because you just tell, I just with go with the watercolor, then maybe I do something more. I just make some forward step, uh, but you just we as user we catch this starting that every time is so kind, gentle, very calm down. You just look at this illustration and you catch this in contrast to what is the stories of Mouse God at the end, for example, that are very hard sometimes, very important, very as I can say, like the uh, like how to survive. This is at the end is the sense. So it's this contrast is very interesting. Let me say from the other side. Okay, let's go over. How did your passion for illustration arise in you? Who are your masters that you admire more?
Um, I think there. I was inspired by lots of creatives, not just illustrators,
Hmm.
and not just comic book artists. Jim Henson was an early one. I remember, especially. I mean, I loved the Muppets, and I loved Sesame Street when I was really young, and the Muppets later on. Dark Crystal was
One
the
of
thing
my
of his that
favorite.
just it just the world building there there's an entire world and we get to see a lot of it, but even as a kid I knew there's so much more
Yeah.
beyond that hill. If you kept walking through that forest, there's more to find, more to see. um, so yeah, Jim Henson. Uh, there were classic children's book illustrators like Arthur Rackham and Edmund Dulac. um, and then in comics, Arthur Adams, Jim Lee. They were pretty big for me. Mike Mignola. By the time
Who
I'm in high school.
who is not enchanted by Mike Mignola?
Right.
He created something that break up the rules of dominion of DC Comics and Marvel, establish a new way of a concept, everything. We had a discussion about it with with your colleague, Mr. Eric Larson, that says what Mignola made to comic art is something that put all of us at home, because he just dry up everything, because the drawing of Hellboy are so sharp, no, with this colors of the red of Hellboy that goes out from the comics and right you in the face, no, at the end.
Yeah.
And the rest of the world is so gray. So everything is concentrated on Hellboy. It is something that was not so common at the time, because
Right.
you just say Jim Lee. When you speak about Jim Lee, there is the Sistine Chapel of the comics. No, everything is full. There is everything,
Yes.
everything. No, just
Yeah.
like a Jim Starling's same thing at the end. No, so everything is full. And Mignola just to make the summarize of everything, just
Right.
going to straight to the character, and this is
I
very
think
interesting.
Mike also changed kind of, at least my perception of what comics could be, in terms of his pacing of storytelling. They didn't all have to be these giant, big fight the bad guy. Hellboy certainly does fight a bad guy, punches a monster.
Yeah,
But there are also really slow stories where he's just kind of. It's almost like the joke about Indiana Jones
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, he didn't have to do anything, and the ending of the movie would have been the same. There are Hellboy stories where Hellboy is just kind of there going through it, but he's not actually actively changing the story, and it's still a really good story. It's interesting. We
yeah,
get to observe it just like Hellboy's getting to observe it, and it's a very different storytelling style for American comics.
yeah, yeah,
The other thing that Mignola did that I started really paying attention to probably late high school, early college, was everything he said about drawing the kinds of things he wanted to draw and not doing what everyone else wanted.
yeah,
That he was going to get his best work. The only way making comics is hard. The only way you're going to get to the end of the story is if you still are passionate about it by the end. And then seeing, like, we knew that with the founding of Image
mm-hmm.
Comics, creator-owned comics we're a whole industry. It wasn't just relegated
Yeah,
to a few people like Eastman and Laird or Stan Sakai. It was now a little bit more of a mainstream force, but the Image model was still kind of Marvel DC
yeah,
monthly issues,
yeah, yeah,
trade that follows after a certain number, but it's ongoing. It's the soap opera. You have the A plot and the B plot, and when you're wrapping up the A plot, the B plot becomes the A plot, and you start a new B plot, and it's just this never-ending kind of ongoing thing. Is still kind of what Image was doing, and Mignola with Hellboy just went, I'm gonna do 5 issues of this story, and then you're not gonna see me for a little while, and then I'm gonna do a short story that's only 2 issues, and then I'm going to do another big one, and then I'm going to do 3 short stories. And it was just like, I'm just going to tell the kind of story. He just said, he demonstrated, I'm going to tell the stories that I want to tell. I'm not going to let ongoing or sales numbers or page count even dictate what kind of stories I'm going to tell. And that was a huge influence. I mean, Mouse Guard is a collection. It is a series of mini-series.
yeah.
And I totally got that from Mike.
You just anticipate me, because I would like to say that even the perception of comics, sometimes comic art, because for me now comic is became a form of art, modern art. there was this perception that comics was monthly, was continuously, no? It's not bad at the end because it's a classic comics. Like everything, you could have classic or modern. And I appreciated the evolution of comics and especially arriving to the art book and to the art novel like Mouse Guard. And I appreciate it so much. And I think that the breakthrough of this way to concept this was what Mr. Alan Moore did with Watchmen, for example, no? At the end, because just create something that is self-concluding with strong, small part that just going to conclusion. And this is what a great revolution. And this is what I appreciated very much in Mouse Guard. The seasons, no? The spring, the fall, the winter, and it's a perception that starts from the beginning because you just use a different color for each season, no? And starting from the cover and starting from just the title, winter, and you go with maybe more gray, more blue colors, no? More icy ones. The people has just the perception of what they will find into the comics just from the cover, just with one single image. And this is what I appreciate very much because from the cover, you just to be fascinated to just open up and see the rest. Because sometimes with the comics was not so catchy because the cover was made with extra work, but at the end inside sometimes there are more stories than drawings, no? In your case, I think that this is the opposite. There is more drawing sometimes, and drawings tells you the story because just looking into the mouse, what he did, what the expression, what the colors used for him, you just catch the stories without one single word. This is the perception that I had, and this is this agree of what you said right now. Your evolution is going, I think, even over what Mignola and other ones started, and you and your colleague it just a push over using even instruments that are uncommon for drawing, especially the tabletop RPGs. That is, I think, it's a new frontier for illustrator, for artists. Because it just give you freedom, and maybe in art book you don't have so much, no? At the end you can tell a story without telling it one single word because you have some rules, but it's completely unlinked from the drawing. So with the drawing you just said, I read this page, I have this image on my mind, I would like to transmit to the reader that is learning the game, no? And with this image I will tell him what will be the direction of his imaginary world, no?
Right.
Am I right in this thinking?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. This is very.
I need to check on a 3D
Yeah. No problem.
Check it. Just for a second.
Check it.
Right
No
back.
problem. No problem. Signori, un momento di pausa perché il nostro ospite sta finendo una stampa 3D e noi non gliela vogliamo interrompere. Nel frattempo, saluto tutti.
It's still going.
It's still going.
I saw what I thought was damage, and I was like, I can't believe we got to 99%, and it failed, and it's not. It was It was a little glob that had just fallen down. It was fine.
We don't want that you remember this streaming live for 99% full.
We're so close to this thing being done. I have started this. This is my 6th time starting this print. And this time is the furthest it's ever gotten. I think we got to about 40% on one of them.
I kindly ask you, to the old listener, to the old spectators over here, to all the people in chat, to cross their fingers and fingers over fellowship and families, just to our guest, Mr. Petersen, to finish his 3D printing this time. Maybe Italian is a good people and bring good luck, so we hope so. Anyway, just so we go over Mouse Guard. Mouse Guard,
Yeah.
your iconic work that is so very incredible, admire. Please tell us something more because we are very curious about that.
Yeah. So the role playing game, uh, the, I had I had played a lot of role playing games growing up. Um,
We are very interesting even on it.
sure, I played. So in my house, unfortunately, D&D was not allowed
Well,
uh, because of the worry about the religious stuff.
yeah, I know.
Yeah. Um, but my parents never said. All they said was you can't play Dungeons and Dragons. They never said I couldn't play other role playing games. So I played lots of things. I played Shadowrun. I played Ninja Turtles. I played GURPS. And then eventually, by the time I was 17, I was like, I'm almost a legal adult. I don't care what they say. I'm playing D&D. And so I played a little bit of D&D, but not as much as I would have had I started earlier. But I knew enough about Dungeons and Dragons to understand, all the fantasy stuff with elves and dwarves and halflings and stuff like that. But yeah, we played a lot of stuff. In fact, we even got to the point where we would do. I think with role playing, there's a whole lot of trust
Yeah.
involved with your group. Um, you trust that people are going to try to play fairly and not be jerks. You trust that no one's going to try to game the system. You trust that even though we're doing silly, weird things, we're doing silly voices, we're maybe saying things in character that we wouldn't say ourselves, that no one is going to hold any of that against us or laugh at us or make fun of us. There's a trust, a circle of trust with your role playing group. Our group, I feel like we were so good at trusting one another. We started playing this thing that we called a diceless.
Yeah.
And it wasn't any official system. I know there are a couple of role playing systems that are now official. We literally had nowhere to be. Everybody's house was off limits. So and so's parents were getting the house, the carpets clean. Somebody else said, my dad worked third shift. I don't want any kids in here. For whatever. We're just walking around our neighborhood and taking a walk through the woods. And as we're walking, one of us said, tell me we're going to play a role-playing game. Tell me your character. And we're like, what are you talking about? We don't have dice. We don't have, and he's like, that's okay. And it was just, you described what you did. And we had enough trust in the game master so that when they said you miss, if it's especially combat, you miss, or you don't perceive something and you walk into a trap, that we knew that, we could trust them that it's going to be good for the story.
Mm-mm.
It's going to make it more interesting.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of like, what do you mean I miss? You just decided that. That's not right. And they're like, just hold on. You missed, but it's because the character phased 3 feet to the right. And you're like, wait, what? How did the character do that? And then you're like, oh, okay, we got to figure this out. And now it's an interesting story. And it just became storytelling exercise, really, even though we did it like a role-playing game. So when Mouse Guard the comic comes out, and I have several issues out, I have people asking me, is this based on a role-playing game? Well, there wasn't a role-playing game at that point, but there was obviously enough of my role-playing background that kind of translated into the comic pages of Mouse Guard that I knew that the fan base was ready. So when an opportunity came along, the publisher was the head of the publishing company, the U.S. publishing company, was a big avid gamer, and he had released an RPG for his comic. So I knew he was good with it. I was excited about the idea, and then we found Luke Crane was interested in designing and writing a special system for us. So it worked out. All of that stuff and background was kind of pre-baked into Mouse Guard before we even got the role-playing game.
You just touched some points that in this streaming broadcast we analyze deeper and deeper with a lot of people, including big ones and even my friends that I just call here just for discuss about this matter. It's the annual it's a millennium, I think, fight challenge between the storytelling and the rules dominion. uh, there was even like in the comics, even like the that we did for Mignola, there was the same thing in the roleplay game, because I think that especially at the end of the 90s and even into the first years of the new millennium, there was a sort of revolution. The people would like to make a storytelling sometimes more than to be so strict with the rules. And I think that people was very sad and very not so more open to appreciate extra big lore with many regulation, with a huge quantity of books that became not more something to use to create adventures or create stories, but something that make limits.
It's a compromise. There's really good things about heavy rule systems that can be good and fun, and there's really good things about lighter systems that just enforce role playing. They're just different good things, and you're compromising on how much of each of those things you want,
Yeah.
and where in that rule list you come. For me, I hate the idea of rules being so burdensome that they get in the way of being able to tell a story. Um, I hate the idea of having to constantly calculate encumbrance.
Mm.
You know,
I
how much can you carry? Well, how much you can carry is also how much you can carry where you're weighed down, how much you can run with, how you know, so like your character, I have 2 battle axes, a cauldron, a 4-person tent, full plate armor, 200 feet of rope, rations for 30 days. An orc pops out of the out of the bushes. I run. Do you? I think you fall flat on your face. But the only way to really enforce those rules, storytelling wise, unfortunately, is calculating encumbrance. And so, if you can get a rule system that's balanced,
yeah.
or come up with some other mechanics, like you have a certain number of slots, or you have, we're gonna, instead of weighing items by the ounce,
Yeah.
or the gram,
Yeah.
we're just gonna say it's a light object, a medium object, and a heavy object, and you're allowed to carry. You know, you could even do it with, you could have cards that go down that are different sizes, and when you fill up your space, that's all you can carry. You know, heavy cards are bigger, medium cards are a little smaller, light cards are really small, and that's what you can carry. But it's a visual way of just being able to play rather than go, hold on, math class is in session, we have to figure out how much stuff I can carry, how much I can run with, how much I can bench press with.
This is a very good point, because now I tell you a story about it. Italy, as usual, it's a very hard ground just to test each possible tabletop RPGs. So there was a challenge into the 90s and the beginning of 2000 about the parties, because we are a supporter like in the soccer where it's our nature. There is a supporter of a 3.5 or Dungeons and Dragons against the people that support Pathfinder, no? Then there was the team of Vampires the Masquerade. So the people that says if you don't read 110 manuals of Vampire the Masquerade, you are ignorant, so go away. Then we have the other people. Now I think that we are risky to ban off the channel, but I don't care about it. Of other people that comes from Warhammer. Because Warhammer, when you speaks about Warhammer, there is a people that probably is out of the door called the police of Warhammer, asking if you have studied too much or enough. This is make me extremely tired because I am a master and player of tabletop RPGs since the 90s, at the beginning of the 90s, something even a little bit earlier from 1989, something like that. I just explored even possible world from the big lores to the small games. And now I decided to concentrate myself on what you are speaking about. So, new system, something that is uncommon, something that is a test. It's a test of something more, something that is not using the dices. Sometimes diceless, sometimes using cards, tarots, sometimes. And Italy, in this sense, is a very hard ground because here it becomes the test of many games with so incredible variety of system of playing just for leading the chaos. Okay, and so I think that the game, the role play games right now is becoming day by day something that is grow up in many direction. As my friend said, and I just love this sentence, said tabletop RPGs is like a mixed dish of fries, no? Something fried. So you can just a chicken wing or carrots or potatoes. At the end, everything is fried. But if you don't like potatoes, maybe you like carrots, maybe you like a chicken wings, so something like that. They are all fried, but something it's not for you. Something is more for you. So there is no right or bad. It's just
no, and like I said, they all have their own benefits. Warhammer, for me, I think there is a role playing game version, but when I think of Warhammer, I just think of the miniature tactical style gameplay. It's all miniatures. Tactical game playing isn't about story. It's not about that character's motivations and backstory and who trained them and what they're actually searching for. It's just a battle game. It's a tactical game. Like it's more like chess than it is like role playing. I love playing those kinds of games, but I don't want my role playing games to feel like that. I also don't want my miniatures games to feel like role playing games. It's okay, like what you're saying. It's okay. You can like fried carrots and fried potatoes and fried chicken, and if you don't like fried yams, that's okay. Don't eat them.
there is on the chat. There is the person that said, "Oh my God, there's David Petersen on your streaming." So he said, I have two. He said, I have two because it's a friend. It's dear friend of mine. Said I have the person that I like more even on one streaming. So thank you very much. And he said here in Italy, the playing of with mice in the role play game as some games that challenge for the big one. But the big one, it remains for sure Mouse God. Sometimes I have to honestly say that here in Italy, we have some problem to manage games that gives you way to move a group of characters. Okay, so moving of groups. The system on the back of a mouse guard, it's something that it's so common maybe in other countries like the United States, but here in Italy is so not so common. But at the end, if you have a good master that is able to explain the mechanic that is behind mouse guard became easy, but needs a little bit some explanation. So it requires, I think, a master that he knows his job. There are other games with mice that are with more simple system, but they have a too much simple system to manage the group of mice. Because managing the group, you play GURPS. You just told about Mr. Steve Jackson that I'm trying to invite here since many years, but he never commented, but it's okay. We discuss about the GURPS, I think, every streaming. he created the system, the first system, I think, that he managed the group of characters and you use as a single one player. And it was a little bit very complex, even for the master than for the player. It was not so simple. And in Mouse Guard, I think that everything became easier, even because the fortune, I don't know, the original name was Fortune Wheel, if I remember well.
Burning Wheel.
Burning Wheel, yeah, sorry. Burning Wheel, I read it, it's very, very different of what you applied into the Mouse Guard. That was very tough to approach. In the Mouse Guard one, I think that you have a very lighter one and more performant, according even, let me tell you, to what you find on the drawing, because the system is so connected to the illustration. And I think it's just a few of ones that you can purchase right now all over the world. This is what I tell you from Master's side.
Luke, one of the reasons I knew Luke was the right person to do Mouse Guard was that he already had his system Burning Wheel.
Yeah.
Which was a success. And it was kind of an indie darling. The people who loved it, loved it. Not everybody loved it, but the people who really did were in it. And he didn't say, I want to adapt Mouse Guard for Burning Wheel. He said, I want to adapt Burning Wheel to Mouse Guard.
Yeah, so right.
He completely rewrote the system. He just used it as an idea source, as a continuing the wheel theme.
Yeah.
He just used the hub, and he built a new wheel off of it for Mouse Guard. And I challenged him with a couple things that the encumbrance thing came up, but so did I told him, like, you have a hard job because my comics appeal to people who are 8 years old, and they appeal to people who are 80 years old.
Yeah, right.
You have to write a role-playing game that's going to work for all those people. And he said, we have to tighten those numbers up a little. Like, I don't know that I can write a role-playing game for 8-year-olds, but I could write one for maybe 11-year-olds. He said, I can write one that becomes my first role-playing game. And I go, you got to do that, but without sacrificing where it feels so simple that 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, long-term gamers still feel like they want to play it. Not that they just want to play it with their kids. They want to play it. I'm gonna.
Check it.
I just have to move.
We cross fingers. Please chat, cross fingers. Ragazzi, incrociate le dita. È vero, è stupendo. Incrociate le dita perché il signor Petersen sta facendo una stampa 3D dei suoi giochi di miniature e sta al 99%, no? E se gli portiamo sfiga se lo ricorderà per gli anni a venire. Quindi cerchiamo di portare fortuna, quindi incrociate tutti quanti le dita, toccate ferro, legno, cose, se avete cornetti antisfiga, mi raccomando, tazzicateli. Portiamo la Genkidama di fortuna. I just forced all the chat over here to cross fingers, touching wood, touching iron, touching everything that could be bringing good luck.
How's the echo without my headphones on?
Sorry?
Is it okay?
Yeah.
How is the echo if I don't have headphones on? Are you getting
No,
feedback?
it's okay. I just asked to the chat. Ragazzi, c'è qualche problema di audio? Se c'è qualche problema di audio, perché cava le cuffie, ce lo dite. Va bene? Grazie.
I had them on because it was easier to hear you over the sound of the printer, but now that it's turned off, I'm okay.
No, but at the end, it's not a problem. Here I have people outside that maybe goes with a car, so no problem. Anyway, it was so interesting. Just one point to close the things about the system of Mouse Guard. You just told one part that is very interesting. You said my game is from 8 to 80, and this is so true because at the end the system of Mouse Guard, I think that if you as master read very carefully the rules, I think that you just make it a little bit more simple for some users and a little bit more complicated for other users. Okay, just making a one-shot playing or campaign playing, at the end, I think that is possible to make some level of adaptation, no, to the gamers. And this is not so common in the tabletop RPGs. It's
Right.
very uncommon because at the end the system is something so strong, rocky, untouchable, undestructible, unmodifiable, and at the end you have some rules that are the rules, and you cannot move on. I think that the rules of Mouse Guard are more fluid, are more adaptable to the
Hmm.
people that is playing at the moment. So this is something. This is my perception as master, and I did it because when I bring Mouse Guard with our association of a role play game just for free to let people start playing and playing even at all ages. I just brought Mouse Guard at the table, sometimes making some 2 or 3 ideas of using the rules, according to the people that I found on the table, no?
Hmm.
And it was very suitable. It was very performant in this. So, and it's something that I found as a surprise because I read carefully the system and I didn't know that was so mutable, so adaptable. But I found it, and it was very funny for me as master, and funny even for the people at the table that have fun and enter into the Mouse Guard experience quite immediately. And with a system that is no like the OSR or OZ1 that are very with few rules, because at the end the system of Mouse Guard has good amount of rules, not too much, not too less. I think that it's something very unique. As you said, the system does not bend the illustration, but the illustration, the lore of Mouse Guard bending the game, even the game itself bend to the people that stays on the table.
Yeah.
I think this is the perception that I added.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is. I think that you agree with me, so I'm happy about it. Anyway, let's go over. Many people come to Mouse Guard from role playing. What relation do you have with role play games with your fellow illustrator into this sector? I think that you know some of them.
Um, yeah, I mean, I know some people who have done role playing game illustrations. The ones that I'm closest with are Tony DiTerlizzi.
Mm-hmm.
He did a bunch of stuff for Dungeons and Dragons and Planescape. And
Whoa.
then Mark Smiley, who
Ooh.
was the head of Archaea when it was founded. He did his own Artesia role playing game, but he's done illustrations for. Oh, I'm blanking on the name of the company now. Uh, Another role playing game company. I'm
No
I'm
problem.
forgetting the publishing name now.
No
Uh,
problem.
yeah.
What is the influence that they gave to you as a what do you maybe you see some manuals, no, and at the end you said, okay, I like it more, I like it less.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember looking through different Dungeons and Dragons illustrations, even though I wasn't allowed to play, and looking through the books. Um, and there was a variety. You get into some of the original, before it was even advanced Dungeons and Dragons
Yeah,
stuff, and some of those illustrations are really weird and simplistic is the wrong word, but
yeah,
it's basic in a visceral way. Like it definitely gives you an emotional response, and you completely understand what it is you're looking at. But it's not high illustration.
yeah.
And then you move through different fantasy illustrations, whether it's for Dungeons and Dragons or just fantasy illustration in general. You get the big bodybuilder style barbarians of like Boris Vallejo and
Very
Larry
80s,
Elmore.
very 80s, 90s.
Yeah, yeah, and like I got it, but it didn't resonate as much with me. I wasn't as interested in that. I also knew, having not played Dungeons and Dragons that much, I did know that there was some kind of a connection at the time when I was a kid between
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons and the Hobbit movie.
Yeah.
The 70s Hobbit movie that had that, kind of different style illustrations. So when it kind of all clicked for me, it was when I saw Tony DiTerlizzi's illustrations for Dungeons and Dragons. His Monster Man, the one that he did like most of the Monster Manual, and then he was also doing a bunch of illustrations for Dragon Magazine around that time.
Yeah.
And I remember a Dragon Magazine thing that he did where it was flawed characters. It was characters with peg legs and massive scars or missing an eye.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was just like, that is so much cooler, and this feels more like an Arthur Rackham fairy tale.
Yeah.
But set in Dungeons and Dragons, the realms of Dungeons and Dragons, rather than some kind of like greased up metal band,
Yeah.
illustration that should be painted on the side of a van. Nothing against that for the people who like it, but that's not where my head was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was less into Conan and more into Dark Crystal. So
Yeah. It's a
seeing what Tony was doing, that's where I was like, okay, this is creature building, this is world building, this is super interesting. And then Mark Smiley, I had met him before I had drawn Mouse Guard. I went to a convention in Chicago, a comic convention in Chicago. I think it was the first convention I ever, and when I say I went to it, I don't mean I was sitting on, that side of the table. I was wandering around as a fan.
This is very cool.
First time I ever went to a convention that wasn't my local convention. It was in a different state here in the United States. It was in Illinois, because it was in Chicago. And I was there with a friend of mine who's also an artist, and we were kind of going, at some point we should get our act together. We should get a table at a convention like this. Like, we should try getting our work out there. And I saw Mark standing at his table, and I recognized his work from role-playing games. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
it's you.
It's you, and he doesn't have a line. Like, why doesn't he have a line? Like, nobody's talking to him. He's all alone. So I went over and talked to him. And part of it was I was just trying to ask, like, I had no idea about what it meant to set up at a convention, but I was asking, like, how much does a table cost at an event like this? And, what kind of things do you need to bring? And he's like, you're an artist? Do you have some of your work? Could you show me?
Yeah.
And I showed him some of my work, and he gave me wonderful feedback. And it was stuff that I was trying to get. Like I said, this is before Mouse Guard. I was seeing if maybe I could get some freelance work doing spot illustrations for role-playing games. And I had sent a bunch of stuff out and got no response. And he gave me a lot of really good feedback about why that was. But it wasn't mean or hurtful. It wasn't even like the cold hard truth. It was just helpful.
This is very good. It's something that gives the idea to transmit something from old generation to young generation. No.
Yeah.
I just lost one coin, and now I tell you why. Just €1, because I was betting that at this question you just told me that one of your influence book was a Stormbringer. Because something that I found in the Color of Stormbringer book that from a Call of Cthulhu editor, I said maybe it remembers me something of the way he draws, especially some of illustration of Mouse God. But maybe I did a mistake because the origin of your heart now you explained very well. As you can see,
I don't know that one.
Yeah, you did it. Oh, it's okay. Stormbringer. It's the one of my favorite lore, the lore of Eldrick of Melniboné. It's
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And there was a game edited with the same system of Call of Cthulhu, and it was incredible art book in sense of drawing, but the system was, let me say, horrible, because playing D100 with the game with the demons and berserks and I don't know, the dark and something like that with D100, that was a system of Vampires the Masquerade at the end, and for Call of Cthulhu, it was a bad idea. And I think that in Italy, when you speaks about Stormbringer, wonderful book, horrible system. This is the same thing that all people said.
I'm sorry I cost you €1, but no, that was not an influence on me.
No problem, no problem. It
No,
was just an espresso coffee that I have to pay. Anyway, no problem about it. And yeah, you just tell one thing that I would like to reply to you. You said, I'm not so accustomed with people that drawing something like heavy metal band and so on. Here in Europe, and from Europe to United States, I think is the first time in history of role-play games, it arrives this game that make the break or rule breaker. That was Morkborg. Morkborg at the end is a Nordic two words that means dark castle, and was the illustration was made by a friend of this channel, that was Mr. John Nord, that was here as guests with Mr. Pelle Nilsson, that are the two creators. Mr. John Nord is the illustrator of this this game. This game is little bit disturbing at the end, because there is a use of yellow and orange that is something that makes you the manual unreadable. But it has something common with your heart. Morkborg, in a way that probably is in the opposite part of the universe from you, has the same idea, gives you something that eats so much your eyes even before the game, because the system of the game is OSR, so at the end it's advanced that lost the trademark, no? Just for make a summer. And so I think that it has the same power. So in the roleplay game, I learned this lesson, and you now is confirming to me the powerful of drawing. Sometimes it's more than the power of the rules. It's something that gives you more the idea of the game, even for 100 example of using the rules. Because from one illustration, you could understand what is the perception of how to play. For example, I make you an example. If you take one manual of Dungeons and Dragons, and you just look at the face of Xanata, no? The beholder, you just understand what kind of evilness is the evil of the beholder. So when you go to read, you can just read that is a line, and maybe it's legal evil or chaotic evil. There's no this difference, because at the end the imaging of the beholder so angry with anyone just to kill a lot of adventurers, it's more evocative than even 100,000 rules. No? So this is the point. And I think that in Mouse Guard, this thing is bring to the extreme, even in the kindness, but even bring to the extreme, because just staring at the face of one of the mouse, I think you could just learn more sometimes than maybe making 1,000 example. Just this is my position.
I mean, a good illustration should convey a lot of information to the viewer. The least of which is just what's happening in the illustration, right? The character is pickpocketing a guard or something like that, or a dragon is protecting its treasure hoard, which also has unhatched eggs. Those are the verbs of the sentence, right? This is what's happening.
Yeah.
But there's an emotional tone too. Is this horror?
Yeah.
Is this a fairy tale? Is it somewhere in between? Is it dead serious? Is it light and comedic?
Yeah.
Is it funny? Is the character like grabbing their hat as they're running away from the, from the dragon protecting its eggs? Uh, that there's a mood, there's a tone that really should be conveyed in a good illustration. That I think, to your point, like you were saying, that tells you everything you need to know about the setting. How are we supposed to play this game? What kind of, because there's only so much that a game can also give you in terms of world building. You have to come up with your own adventures at some point. You have to speak for any of the non-player characters, any of the townsfolks, or the kings or queens, or the bartender. You have to come up with what's beyond what's beyond the town, what's beyond the road out of town. What happens if you turn left on that road and walked through the field? What's out in the middle of that field? You have to come up with it. The book can't come up with everything for you. You have to come up with that. So those illustrations should give you enough landmarks that you go, I can fill in the gaps on my own. Me and my group can fill in the gaps, and we can come up with
Absolutely.
So those illustrations are important. It's one of the reasons that I don't like how reliant some role-playing games are on spot illustrations, where it's just, and when I say spot illustrations, I mean a floating character. It's a really nicely polished, but character design floating on the page. Some of that is okay, but some game manuals over rely on them. I need to see a full illustration. I need to see a background. I need to see a setting. I need to see a character interacting with something. I need to see lighting. I need to see all those things. When it's just a character design, no matter how cool the character design is, unless I know enough about that world, like a licensed thing, like a Star Wars role-playing game, can get away with more of that because I already know what Star Wars is from all the movies and TV shows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if you're introducing a new world,
fully agree.
Or even let's say it's an old world. Let's say it's Dungeons and Dragons, but you're introducing it to a group of 11-year-olds who have never played Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, absolutely.
When they flip through the manual, they can't just see really cool characters. Oh, those are great ideas for what my thief could look like. But they have no concept of what the rest of the world is unless they have those illustrations that are full page, full scene.
Fully agree. I think that you are more than right, because just for getting back to Dungeons and Dragons, I think that in the past, in the years, I think that the drawing of 𝑺𝑻𝑹𝑨𝑵𝑵𝑬𝑩𝑶𝑳 bring so much people to play Dungeons and Dragons, even sometimes many useless or floating characters or something that just was a scheme of things to do. Because at the end, the catchy to go on the table and as a representative of a person that play as master and as player, sometimes it grows up with small things but very catchy. So the smile of Minsk with Boo on the shoulder is something that gave people willing to go on the table to play. This is my perception. I think that I catch the point that you told me just with a small example.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the chat there is your fan that says, Mr. Petersen made an amazing art about RPG webcomics about 9 years ago. Did I remember correct? And then it continues. I do not recall the name of the webcomics. It was about a group of friends playing Dungeons and Dragons. There was a female dwarf and the paladin played by a grumpy guy. And he said, yes, the webcomic was a Table Titans.
Table Titans. Table Titans by Scott Kurtz. And it's a wonderful webcomic. It's also been published. And now he's actually doing a young adult graphic novel series that's aimed at a slightly younger audience, where he took those characters back to middle school.
Yeah.
Showing them playing role-playing games in middle school and kind of changed the tone just a little so that it was more appropriate for middle grade readers.
it says, it continues, says, one of my favorite illustration was one of a Todd Lockwood in the third edition book with a third party at a tavern. This illustration gave me inspiration every time, and it was the proper example as I did with the Smile of Minsk. And they said, I love Table Titans and see your heart in the sight made me squeak. Because at the end, this guy is an illustrator, has a very good draws, and it comes here, Mr. Marajczuk, and he has a channel here on Twitch. And I would like to, I hope that maybe you know one day each other's, maybe on Twitch, writing one to each other, because I think that you will be a great friend in terms of even on art. Anyway, let's go straight to another question. How do you see the world of illustration today between the real and virtual? What is your opinion about this?
When you say virtual, you mean digital, like digital media?
Yeah,
versus...
you know, there is the huge polemic issues about the using of a digital instrument to be just with pencil on their hand, the using of artificial intelligence. You know, there is a word, but just because you have the gift to be concrete and true, I think that you could give us a reply with your opinion. We are very curious about it.
So I'm totally against AI.
Yeah.
At the very easiest level, because it's always been unethically sourced. It has too much risk for being misused to corporately replace artists. So I'm completely out on AI. But when it comes to digital versus traditional, pencil on paper, or doing digital paintings in Photoshop or Procreate or whatever, Clip Studio, whatever your digital program of preferences, it doesn't matter. I mean, in the end, it's, does the artwork look good? Whoa! In the end, was the artwork created by a human being? And two, does it look good? Does it do the things it's supposed to do? Does it tell a story?
Yeah.
We can judge it by all kinds of, classical art things about balance and symmetry, how much light and dark value it has. Can I read can I tell what's actually happening? Are things getting lost? But when we judge it by that metric, it doesn't matter if it was done traditionally on paper or on canvas, if it's an oil painting, a watercolor painting, or if it was done digital, or if it's a hybrid. My work is all a hybrid. I do traditional inks and then digital colors.
I agree with you, and even our friend Mr. Marajczuk said totally on board with the AI take, Mr. Petersen. I do not despise the tech, I despise the implications. And let me tell you something more. I am against the use of AI with no implication or borders, because at the end it's not a problem. We just started from one hand that take the pencil to the other hand that take the digital pencil to the end that just write into the keyboard. But the real problem on this is not even the AI. The problem is the industry and the money that are on the back on it. Because there is no problem to make a work and to be paid for his art. I am fully agree that the illustrators has to be paid, because art need to be paid and need to be, it's the celebration of the art. This is my point. But if you want to find a way to just overjump this and go straight to the results for your quarters, for your money, for your blah, 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 because the industry required this, I am completely against. We are making this broadcast, David, just to let the people understand what is the tabletop and give them information for free. because this I don't make money with this, and I don't want to make it because I would like to be free to say anything. If there are money involved, you are property of something else. And I think that for the illustration is the same thing, because at the end it's a worm that goes from one sector of a creation to the other one. So I think I'm fully agree with you. The problem is not the AI itself. The problem is what is leading the AI, is what is making the AI. Because at the end, even the 3 points of a Photoshop, it's something connected to the AI. You just put one spot and it makes 3. At the end, even that is moved by AI. But that don't give money to anyone. This is just a support for the creator for making something that even go further, because at the end there's no pity or sin to using something that is more evoluted. Okay, but
going back to Dark Crystal,
yeah,
everything that appeared on screen in that movie,
yeah,
had to be made, had to be crafted. Right? If you filmed pick any other movie, you know, It's a Wonderful Life, or I don't know. I'm trying to Rocky.
Rocky, yeah,
Right, Rocky. They filmed out in the streets of Philadelphia.
yeah,
Right? They could just point the camera at something. For Dark Crystal, there was nothing to point the camera at until everything was built. That's every set, every plant, every goblet, every chair. There was nothing that was just ready-made in a prop house you could take off the shelf. Everything had to be created from scratch. That, for me, is what being an artist is. It's having total control over your medium. A true artist has total control over the medium. It doesn't mean there can't be happy accidents and things that happen. But if you see something that isn't working, one, as an artist, you should know if the illustration is working or not.
yeah,
If it's not conveying what it needs to, this area needs to be lighter, this area needs to be darker. And an artist would have the ability to then say, I need to make micro adjustments. This area needs to be darker. I need to get rid of the yellow over here. I need to make this part bigger. With AI, you don't really have that ability.
yeah,
You're not doing art.
yeah,
You're having it completely regenerate. And like I said, there's all kinds of ethical issues about how the AI was trained, what images it was fed, and how it got those, in a lot of cases illegally. I know that artists copy other artists.
yeah,
I looked at Jim Lee. I copied Jim Lee drawings. I copied Mike Mignola drawings. But I'm also a human being, and I have it's being interpreted by my emotions, my feelings. I'm picking the things in each of those people's drawings that are resonating the most with me, and then I'm trying to replicate it. But also, I only have so much time to be able to replicate it, to try to do the new thing. An AI can do 10,000 iterations very quickly. That's unethical.
I fully agree. The story of the world passes even to the expression of the art itself, and you could not overjump this one. It's like the things that you said at the beginning of the illustration of mouse guards. You have not to go over, and this is go over for 1,000 million times, I think. So you are more than right, and I think that your thinking is on a arrow, on a line, and I appreciate it very much. It's so catchy for me, and I love it. Let's go further. Our future project, rumors. Come on, tell us something.
Rumors. I'm working on the next book, the next volume of Mouse Guard.
Yeah.
It's called The Weasel War of 1149.
Mm-hmm.
I have to get far enough into it that once we start publishing it, the publishing will never catch up with me trying to finish pages.
Yeah.
So it'll be a 6-issue series. Each issue is going to be longer than I've ever done an issue. Normally my issues are 20, 24 pages. These are going to be 36. So 636 issue pages, 36 page issues. I don't have a timeline for release yet because I'm not far enough into getting the drawings done. And then I've been doing freelance work here and there. I've actually been doing a lot of catch up, trying to make sure that I have everything I need for conventions.
Yeah.
I need some new prints when I go to a convention, or I need a new T-shirt, or I need, I need to finish some commissions for people. Those kinds of things. I just did some work for Wizards of the Coast for Magic the Gathering. They have a new set coming out called 𝑺𝑻𝑹𝑨𝑵𝑵𝑬𝑩𝑒𝑛𝑐𝑳. Comes out in August.
Ooh.
And I've done 5 cards for that series. One of the images has been released. They've shown it. It's a character called Mabel.
Wow.
And
this is very good news. Incredible.
Yeah. It was a pleasure getting to work with him.
This is very interesting. I think that it's a very incredible news. Maraichu said, "Oh no, I need to start collecting magic cards now." And that's the last question from Maraichu that says, "How much time did you take to make Masgard book? Average."
Each book has been different.
Yeah.
The first book I did while I was still working a day job, so I only worked on it on nights and weekends, and I would get an issue done per 2 months. So it was basically 6 issues, so it was basically a year to get the first book done. The second one took probably closer to a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And then the third one was several years as well. This fourth one that I'm working on now, I have been working on and off for many years. I mean, I drew the first. Are we getting some feedback?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're getting some feedback. Let me put my headphones on.
No, but yes, it works. It works well.
Okay.
It works well.
I thought I was getting feedback. I started working on the first cover for the first issue of Weasel War in 2017, and I'm still not. It's because I've had to start and stop and start and stop. I also became a full-time caregiver for my mom in 2017, and so I had to put the whole project on hold until she passed in 2020. So, every book is different. I'll let you know. I'll let you know when I get back on track with Weasel War how long that one takes.
Maraichuk says just 1 year for the book, for the first book. Wow.
Yeah. And only nights and weekends. It was crazy. I think if you look at the quality of the art in volume 1 in fall versus the quality of the art in winter and quality of the art in Black Axe, you'll see some dramatic shifts.
Yeah. This is very incredible, interesting. Anyway, so I think that we arrived at the end. We don't want to steal more of your time, but we have a great discussion, David. It was very nice to speak with you because you're a very kind and nice person, even a great artist. But we discover something more about the person behind this incredible art and drawings. So, as usual for our channel, probably you know better than me, we will do a ride to another friend of this channel that now is another artist that was Slayer Digital Art, that is an online artist that makes some very interesting drawings. So we just loaded the ride. Okay, perfect. Some say that my audio is not so good. I hope so, but we are at the end, so we could just have a bad audio right now. Anyway, thank you very much, David. It was a very great moment, and the door of this broadcast is open to you. So one day, if you would like to come back, you just ask me, and whatever you will want to bring over here, you are free, because this is your house, okay?
Thank you very much.
As the Spanish said, mi casa es tu casa, no? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the people in chat. We will go straight to this read, and thank you very much, Mr. David Petersen. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a nice day. Bye bye.